everyone. Welcome to our final webinar of 2024. I'm Joe. I work in the implementation team. Hopefully you're familiar with us, and this is Georgia.
Yep. So I'm one of the client trainers, again, working closely with the implementation team. And if you have any trainings, it's a good chance you'll have seen me before or will see me in the future. So yeah. Let's get started.
There we go. So in just a moment, I'm going to share my screen just to give you a quick recap. This is the 12 days of Christmas. So we're going to go through all of the incredible features that our product and dev team have pushed, mainly on the Voly side. Obviously, if you've been paying attention this year, you'll know some of the features affect both. We've also got on the screen our little advent calendar. So let's get started, shall we?
Yep. So door number one.
There we go. So this one is for me. So January saw the release of our fleet-wide suppliers tool. So let me just share my screen on here. Hopefully you'll be able to see this one. Now, basically our fleet management moved the management or the possibility to manage suppliers and the beneficiary details for them. So that's those bank accounts, from purely being on an asset level to being at that fleet level. So previously, let's say I managed 4 boats, but on all 4 boats, I was paying invoices to one supplier, you know, those common ones that all boats use. I'd have to add those beneficiary details 4 times. Well, not anymore. As of January last year, or this year, sorry, our fleet management tool exists. So when you're on the dashboard, you will be able to see the fleet management tool here. If you've not used it yet, it's super easy to make a new fleet. There's the button there for create a new fleet, and all you need to do is add the fleet name and select the assets for it. The reason mine says none to display is because my 2 assets are already in a fleet. Obviously, if you've got a fairly large fleet, you've got some operating in one part of the world and others in another, you can have multiple fleets because it might be that some of the suppliers don't apply to the other ones, obviously. When you're in there, you'll have a list on the left of all the assets in the fleet, and then on the right, those fleet suppliers in all the different currencies. The little black tick there is the sign that the beneficiary details are on there, which means that payments can be made against them across all the boats. If we have a quick look at my North Pole provisioning one for this month's webinar, as you can see, all my details are there. If I want to set my remittance advice auto email, I can do there, which means, as you're already aware from previous webinars, that will be sent straight over to that email as soon as the payment's been made and that remittance advice is available. When you've made the supplier, creating the beneficiary couldn't be easier. You'll hopefully be familiar with that Create Beneficiary button. Once you select the country, obviously you'll then have all of the details to input. And one of the best features for our clients is at the bottom. Obviously, we know you're all very conscious of payment security and doing verification checks before you make that first payment. So when we're in here, if you want to make a record of who has telephoned the supplier to check that all those details are correct before you make that first payment, you can do it there. Couple of quick things to mention on there. If you do have beneficiary approval on, so that if Georgia makes the beneficiary, I want to approve it before a payment's made, we can apply that to the fleet level. And similarly, all of the data to do with the transactions, so invoices added to a boat, even if it is for a fleet supplier, that data sits on a boat level. So there's absolutely no risk at all of 2 boats being able to see each other's invoices for a fleet supplier. That's all held at asset level. That's a really useful feature that came in January that our clients loved. Let's hand over to Georgia. I'll stop sharing for a moment so that you can see this.
Yep. So if we come on then to door number 2, that was of course February, and it was the introduction then of our revaluation wizards. So on there then, I'm just going to pull it up on here again for that seamless transition. So then on here, then when you're coming to do your journal and you want to do revaluation, whether that be for invoice or accounts, you'd go into your account on there, and then of course you'd go into your journals area. Now, prior to February, this was then a very manual process of you could do individual account revaluations, or you could do like new journal entries if you knew exactly where you wanted to put the FX currency exchange and things like that. But the introduction then of the revaluation wizard for both the invoice and the account revaluation tool makes things a lot easier. So if we start off then with the invoice revaluation wizard, let's say you're making payments in currencies separate to your reporting currency. So your reporting currency is GBP and you've got then invoices for USD. Then there's always the chance that you're in between the invoice date and the payment date that fluctuation has changed. So instead of it being, the 1.2% rate, it's now, 1.1, and then it leaves sort of a difference between the two. So if you're very, familiar with the system and using it, then you'll know that the accounts payable feature on our invoices page is a good way to check if you do have any outstanding balances on there that maybe need then correcting. But if you come to do a new invoice revaluation, then in Use the Wizard tool, the system's going to tell you everything you need to know on there. So I'm just going to bring it back just the back of time. So let's say then I want to do it, make sure everything's nice and up to date on there, bring it to today, make sure that all of these invoices are then correct. So we can see then straight away that we've got a few different ones on there that have pulled through. So if they're in the same currency as your reporting currency, they won't show on here. But if there are also no changes in between your invoice date and payment date, they'll also won't show here. So this is only showing outstanding balances on these invoices. So we can see it pulls through for us the date of that payment, the invoice information, so the invoice number, the supplier on there, and then a bit of a description as well. It's letting us know then how much is outstanding in the currency you've made the payment in. So of course these should all be zero because we've made that payment. It's then letting me know in my reporting currency, so for this account it's euros, what the outstanding balance is. So if it's a negative balance, it will then show an adjustment then to correct that to zero. The same as if it's a positive balance on there as well, it'll minus that off then. All you need to do is go through them, make sure that you're happy with the invoices that are included. If not, you can choose to not include them in this journal, meaning that they'll still be outstanding for next time. Or as well, if you're not happy with the adjustment, you can manually come in and change this. It'll also let you select relevant cost centers and additional fields. So if you are filtering your reports, you can get really technical with the journal entries as well, rather than it just being it's a journal and that's the end of it. You can still account it towards cost centers and additional fields on there. Then at the very bottom, I can't see it on here, just bear with me 1 second. Let's see if it'll zoom out for me. There we go. Hiding at the bottom there is our create journal entry. So all you need to do then is click create journal. The system's then going to create an individual journal entry then for all of these different invoices for you automatically. Then similarly, on the account revaluation wizard, you'd select that. You'd choose your date you want it to be up until, so make it nice and up to date for today. And then you'll input your journal description here. But whereas with the invoice revaluation, it creates an individual journal entry for each invoice, instead it creates one journal entry then per currency on there. So you'll be able to then filter further. So you can either do it where it's one journal entry for all of the accounts showing. You might choose to do it by currency. So then you can say, actually, I want all my USD ones together in one entry and all of my Euro ones in another. Or you can get really specific and say, well, I actually only want all my cash accounts in one. I want all my card accounts in another. And again, it's going to give you some balances automatically. So the current balance of that account in the currency of the account, the conversion then to your reported currency, and the FX rate provided to you by the system. Or if you're using our fixed FX rate feature, you'd be able to see that there as well. So again, you can make changes and updates, and doing the adjustment there, you can see it's letting you know how much that will be worth, and then the adjusted balance at the end there. So when you apply the journal, it will then do all of those updates for you, making sure that your FX is showing correct to the external accounts that you're reporting on, or the things on there. So that is the revaluation wizard tool. So they have sped up quite a lot of the reporting in terms of journals, and you can take a look at those on there if you're doing the revaluations.
Perfect. Right then, let's go to the month of March, which really was a very big month for us in Volley Yachting. So that was the launch, obviously, of our mobile app. That's the brand new, I call it brand new still. It's from March, time's flown by. It was the launch of the brand new Volley Yachting app in that moment. And while I talk you through, I will just put on a quick video showing you exactly what this includes. So let's just get that started. So the new Volley Yachting app wasn't just a total revamp of the way that the app looks, it also added a lot more functionality for you. So you really are able to view all cards, load and unload cards if you have that permission. You can look at your unprocessed transactions. You can process them if you're, crew captain. So that's allocating the expenditure category, updating using the description. Also take a photo with your mobile phone, which then goes direct onto the platform, obviously uploaded straight to the cloud. It really is an incredible new app. We've had a lot of good feedback, haven't we, from crew and admins alike about it. And there is, but I'm not going to mention it yet, a very new feature which has been added to our mobile app, because since then lots of things have come and it will continue to be that way as well. But I'll let Georgia mention that to you a little bit later. So if you're not already using our brand new mobile app, just search for Voly Yachting on the App Store or the Google Play Store. It's the one with the black logo. Well, that was a quick one, so I'll stop sharing on here and I'll let Georgia talk you through.
Yeah, so then in behind number 4, then there, of course, is going to be April, and this was an update to our request page. Now, for those of you that don't know what our request page is all about, I feel like it's one of our more underutilized tools on the Voly platform. It's where we can put in quotes and have a whole process set up for those. You can have your own little approval flow specifically for the quotes and then the invoices attached to them. So the request process in itself has remained much the same. However, the page has had a nice little overhaul. So just as a reminder to those of you that have used it previously, I apologize, it's a very blurry image. It wasn't just the fact that it was blurry, because of course it was not blurry at the time, but we can see here that this is how it used to look. So we've got like the date required, it's split by like your requests and then other people's requests, and you can see the status there. So the status wording was maybe not as clear as it could have been. So then when we go then to how it looks now, we can see on there that it is now less blurry on that one, but also how it's changed. So we still got your requests at the top, but then we can see we've now got splits like approved requests open, approved requests close, rejected request. So it makes it a bit clearer. You've also got these reporting totals then at the bottom. So these are the total requests for the requests I've got on there. And then the addition then of these new columns. So our request value, invoice value, and open value. So like I say, previously it used to just be the one amount and if it was invoiced or not. Now you can see if you've got your approved quote and it's had a invoice assigned to it, you can see how much has currently been invoiced against it, how much is still outstanding in terms of open value. And then as well, the status triage area sort of changed and updated as well to make it a lot clearer which status they were at. So now we've got introduction of terms like open, closed, waiting approval and things like that has updated as well. At the top then we've also got changes, slight changes then to the filterability on there. So rather than you having to like you used to go to the request status of approved to then see committed spend, if you just scroll down to the bottom of this page, your committed spend reports there available at all times. So again, easier access on that one. So there are a few different changes visually, but also functionality wise. And then that also bleeds into then another update that we're going to go through further on. So this was sort of got the ball rolling for a few other changes that came on the platform as well. So if I go on to that one.
Perfect. So we are already up to May, and Georgia, if you just click on there. So this, just in time for Med charter season, saw the release of our APA balance widget. So let me just share my screen quickly once again. So we've been through this a fair few times on webinars, so I will keep it short. If you've never seen the Orange Volley APA platform, it's a separate platform which allows for the complete separation of the operational funds and APA funds if you are managing charter. Through the use of cost centers, it allows you to really easily manage multiple charters if they are back to back or you're provisioning for the next one while you've still got some clients on board. Those of you that were using APA prior to May will know that there were about 2 or 3 quick steps that you had to do to get a charter set up in terms of creating the client account, creating the cost center, which is the way that you tag all expenditure against that charter so that then it appears on the necessary reports. It was about 2 or 3 steps, wasn't it? Well, not anymore, because our APA balance widget, which you can see here on the dashboard in the top left corner, basically takes away 90% of that. So it really is a 2-step process. When you've got a new charter, you've got that new charter button there. You just need to add the charter name, the total APA amount, and select the funding source. Obviously, normally that's the central agent or the charter broker. It also means that you've got right on the dashboard the balance of all of your APA, your charter balances, sorry, at any given time. Obviously, you can see we've not done a very good job of managing the Scrooge charter there, and we've got another one starting on Christmas Eve. So if you are kind of going into Caribbean season and thinking about charter, this will have already been switched on for you, but perhaps you've never used it or you're not too sure what it's there for. Please do reach out to us in advance of those first charters. This makes managing charter even easier than it was as well. The APA app has also been released. That's the equivalent, you know, the new one that's orange for APA. So you can have both of those apps on your mobile phone, operational that we've already shown you, and APA, which is the same with that key difference that it's a managed charter, obviously. So make sure that you're all ready for that and familiar with the APA balance widget. There we go.
So then coming in then to halfway through the year, saw the release of version history. So historically then on the system, changes could be made and you would be able to see that then in terms of transaction level. So if I come into my account here and I come into an invoice, previously you'd always be able to see version, not necessarily version history, but a last edit by, and it would have a date on there and a name. So if I come in here to my Bellamy admin, we can see that we've always been had here the last edit, who it's been by, the time and the date. But now, if you're keen-eyed, you will have spotted that there's this little clock feature with an arrow. And if I hover over it, it tells me how many different versions have been saved. So let's say then someone does come onto an invoice or a cash transaction or any transaction and they make a change. Rather than you having to, have, a really good memory and trying to remember what it used to look like, you just click onto the version history here, and it then shows you what the last version looked like. And if there's more than one version, you can see the one prior and the one before that until, of course, you've not got any more on there. So if you click into that version, then it gives you an overview then of the information as well as attachments on there. So you can see really clearly if an attachment's changed, if it was an amount that changed, if the supplier's changed, you've got all of that information there at your fingertips for that one. And this really nicely accompanies a smaller release that we didn't really go through in January, which was deleted items. So if we were to go onto the settings here, it was about this time of year that deleted items became default for everybody, where you can then see in your settings deleted items down at the bottom, and you can then see anything that's been deleted off the platform. So you'll be able to see the type of transaction that it was, the date, relevant information on there, and as well version history does carry through. So if there was previous versions of something that was deleted, you'd also be able to see that on there as well. You've also got the ability then at the top here to filter your deleted items. So let's say you thought that a certain invoice had been input on there. You can input the transaction number, the description. You can search for the information on that one and as well see date ranges. So if it is a vessel where, there's a lot of changes, updates, deleting of items made, you can see almost like statement view where you can see per month what's been changed and edited and deleted in there as well. Oops. So that is version history and deleted items. And coming back then to our little advent calendar.
Perfect. So yeah, we're halfway through now. So the month of July saw our update to the budgets page. Let me share my screen again with you. So obviously, if you've never used our budgets tab before, although I suspect most of our existing clients will have, if you navigate across the top into the budgets area, you would have noticed that month that the budgets tab had a real revamp. It changed in terms of how it looked, the user interface. It's always been very easy to use, but it became even nicer to look at and nicer to use. So when you're there on a budget, you're able to edit it and add the budgeted items there. As you know, you can lock a budget with your password, which means that nobody else can then edit it. You also have the option to import the budget with an Excel file, so you don't have to do every category manually there. So those were a couple of the minor changes, but one of the biggest changes was the arrival of our named budgets. So previously, all of our budgets had simply been months of the year, which meant that when you were adding a transaction, it would always default to the current month, but you were able to change that. So if you were perhaps paying crew salaries on the first of the month, but you wanted it to be in the budget of the previous month, you were able to do that. What the feedback from some of our clients was related to basically the expenditure not being day-to-day operational expenditure, but instead being for a big project or a big thing like a refit or a big owner's trip. And that's where our named budget comes in really handy. So when you're clicking add budget here in the right, you've now got this drop down, which is for that option of monthly or named budget. And you can add the named one in there. Let's have a look at one I prepared earlier. We've got our refit 2024 budget. Here you can see, obviously, I've not got any income budgeted, but my expenditure is all there, the different groups, as you can see. So what I've got there is the totals for all the groups that I've planned to spend during my refit. As you can see, it's not too expensive a refit. We're on a budget. Basically, this is really useful because, as Georgia will touch on in a little bit, our budget to actual, budget to committed spend, and predominantly the budget to actual report, you can run and therefore see your actual spend for that refit compared to the actual budgeted amount. If we very quickly just run into the invoices page, navigating across the top and click onto add invoice, you'll also see that when you're adding all the details for expenditure, you've got the option there to select the named budget at the top. So it's pretty much like it was before, except it's got the named ones there. That's the invoice level. However, we've also got a special feature enabled on this asset, which is line level budgets, which means actually if this invoice were 3 lines and one thing did relate to expenditure this month that I want to tag against the December budget, but this line here is actually refit related and so is this one, we can actually do that on a line level. Now, any client that wants it can have that. You do just need to get in touch with your relationship manager. So if you think that that line level budget would be great for you, please do just get in touch. But that essentially was what came in July with the launch of our new budgets page.
So then heading into August, touching upon the same sort of subject, we've got our budget to committed spend on there. So this was launched shortly after that budget's revamp, so that you'd be able to then come and see that budget versus committed spend. So previously you'd go onto your request page, you'd pull then your committed spend report. You can go and run your budget to actual report, but you'd have to sort of combine those maybe outside of the platform in order to get a true balance of how much you're going to be over budget or under budget for a certain period. Now, our dev team has released the budget to committed spend report. So this report takes that budgeted amount that Joe's just touched upon. It combines the actual balance for each of those categories and also then any committed spend for the same period. So when you're adding your request, whichever you put as the budget date for that request is then going to pull through onto here. So you choose your budget to total committed spend. You can then choose your budget range on there. So we can say that we want it to cover, let's say, let's come back down in time a bit, from September to December on here. And then you can choose, as always, the accounts payable or receivable if that's enabled on your account. So view the report there then. And I can see that maybe there's some work going on Titanic too. So let's quickly and swiftly move back to Mary Celeste. This is why we always have a backup. And then onto the reports on there and total budgets committed spend. There we go. Looks a bit more right there. View the report then, and you can see there you've got your December for this one. So if I wanted to include then my other ones, again, the drop down there, you can choose to select those on that one like so. And then I'll for that. View the report then, and it's going to give you each of those periods. So again, to see it in the December 24 in the committed column, you do need to make sure your request is December 24, and then you'll be able to see it here, any actual spend against that same budget period, committed, total of the two, offset then against the budgeted amount, the variance between the total, the budgeted, and then of course percentage used on that one. So it gives you a really clear figure, and if you are using more than 1 month at a time, you want to see a whole period, you can then see at the end, as with the budget to actual report, you've got your report total, so the total against those 2 months of your actual for each category committed and the combined total and the percentage and variance used on there. So like I say, it's a real time saving tool on there, so it saves you having to go onto the request page, download the committed spend, do all the maths yourself and then add it all together. The system now does it for you. And like with all the reports, you've got the ability to then download it if you did want to export it from the platform, as well as add it to the report pack, which we're not touching upon this webinar, but this was also new this year. We had to choose our favorites, I'm afraid, with that one.
Perfect. Yeah, Thank you very much, Georgia. That is a really useful feature, particularly linked to the named budgets that we just mentioned earlier. You know, if you want to run the committed spend for your refit, for example, and you're tagging requests against that refit budget, it's great for that too. So that's where that links in for us. Let's see. So I think we can agree September was potentially the biggest month for Volley as a group because obviously it was the Monaco Yacht Show. We're asking Santa for next year to be there. Obviously joking there. Essentially, it, as well as Monaco, it saw us acquire a new sort of arm to Volley Group, which was what's now been rebranded as Volley Crew Solutions, which is the next step in our project to be that end-to-end provider in terms of absolutely everything you need in terms of managing the finances, the crew solutions, and also your works list. You can come to Volley for that. So super big month, and it was also the launch of our new projects module. So I will start sharing my screen in a moment, but essentially the projects module is the first time that Pinpoint Works and Volley Yachting speak to each other. There is a link between the two. So I'm really excited to show you exactly how that works. So let me give you a quick tour. So here I am on Pinpoint Works. I've got my points here. And what I want to show you is, let's take this point card, point 27. Here, it's for my faulty Christmas lights. Urgent request, as you can imagine, on the 11th of December. I've added my description. I've tagged Georgia there. But what you'll notice is we've actually got these new fields which appear when that integration is added for a client, that subscription to projects is added. And essentially what it means is when I'm adding the point in Pinpoint, I can actually pre-select, I should say, my Volley expenditure category there and my Volley cost center. Now, this list will dynamically update. So if a change is made to the expenditure category list on Volley, it would update in here, and that can be filled in. Let's look at what this would look like on Volley, and then we'll come back and show you something else as well. So if I just pop into Volley onto Titanic 2, which is the boat. So here I am on Pinpoint, I'm looking at Titanic 2, and I'm now on the same boat in Volley. If we go across the top to our projects tab, that's where you'll see that same list of points. So if we go down to number 27, that's my faulty Christmas lights. And as you can see, all of that information has pulled through, and this updates in real time for you. So if anybody were to go and change that, it would update here. Now, what's really good is you can click, if you'd like, when you have an invoice relating to that job. So if I click on here, and I can select multiple if I want to, you'll see that this job selected add invoice appears at the bottom. So I'd like to add the invoice now that I've received from the supplier who's going to replace some of my bulbs for those faulty Christmas lights. When I click that, the information I'd already added in Pinpoint, so that's the description, the category, and also the cost center, have automatically pulled through, which means I'm saving time and I'm reducing the risk of error there. So when that comes in there, you've got that. You can add all of the remaining information, obviously the values, invoice date, supplier, etc. And then that invoice would go for all the necessary approval on Volley, whatever your bespoke approval workflow is. So then what does it look like when you've done that? So actually for a different point, if we go back into Pinpoint, that's the leatherwork one, I have added my invoice in Volley. So I'd already added the category and the cost center, and that was on Volley when I added my invoice. But I also then added that invoice, it went for approval. And as you can see, we've actually got more dynamic fields beneath it, which are the invoice value. So I've got here my net value, the VAT, and the total, which again updates dynamically. Now, what's really exciting is, even since it launched in September, we've seen loads of updates actually to the projects module. One of them recently is if I had multiple invoices against that one point, they would update here in this list beneath this one, and then the total would update there. This is a major game changer if you're using these two products, that's Pinpoint Works and Volley, because it means the time you're saving it really can't be sort of overstated, and also the reducing that risk of error. Previously, where you maybe had to add the invoice value manually as a custom field on Pinpoint, you no longer have to do that. It updates in real time. If you are, for example, adding the invoice on the invoices page, maybe you don't actually want to add it from the project page, that's fine. If I were to select my faulty Christmas lights here from the list on that job number, which is a new column that's been added, all of the data would pull through for me anyway, and it would then update in Pinpoint and vice versa. So you don't have to do it from the projects tab. We in the implementation team are looking after the clients who do want to have this switched on. We can set it up as per your requirements. If you only want some people to see that tab, or you only want someone to be able to do that integration, it's all permissions based. If you are interested in upgrading your subscription to include projects, please just give us a shout on the live chat. Our sales team would love to talk you through how we can make your life easier specifically for you, and we can set that up quite quickly, perhaps just in time for Christmas for you. So do give us a shout if you're interested. I'll stop sharing now, and Georgia can talk you through October.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you do want to get involved in the projects module, then of course you will get some training as well if you want to see more of me. But also then coming on to October, we've got our 3D Secure. So 3D Secure then is a way of approving transactions in certain situations. So with our Voly prepaid cards, they've always been able to be used in-store and online. So those of you who physically held them and used them, you'll know you've got your chip and PIN for your in-store payments, and then you've got all your card details for your online transactions. Now, like with any sort of payment, whether you're making it personally or for the vessel, you'll know that sometimes the provider or the merchant wants you to verify your identity, make sure that it's a genuine transaction, especially if it's maybe a lesser used merchant, or maybe one that you've never used personally before. And our cards are no exception. We want to keep everything nice and safe and secure for you and the clients and the owners with their money. We want to make sure everything is really up to date and these are true transactions. So with the system then, how this was usually done was you'd have to log on to the desktop to make this approval. So you'd make your go to make your payment. It would say, you need to just verify this purchase. You'd then need to log onto the desktop and input your password to approve it, or you could reject it. And this is fine if you are office based, or maybe you're the person on the boat and you have the access to the computer at all times. But maybe if you didn't have access to the computer, or you were trying to make the purchase out and about, especially if you're trying to do it on your mobile app, it might have been a bit tricky then to go and jump on a computer and go and make that approval. So in October then, our tech team have improved the mobile app, taking it one step further, allowing you to do this approval through the new Voly mobile app. So the one that was released in March, you have to have that one downloaded, and then you can do your approvals through the app. So to do that, it's really easy. What will happen is the merchant will, on their website, will say, this payment needs approving. You should at that same moment use, if you've got your notifications enabled, receive a notification banner like you would from any app. It will say, there's a payment approval required. You can see there, it'll even tell you what the merchant is from their merchant ID and the amount as well. So there's no surprises if you're getting it through and immediately you're thinking that doesn't look correct. From the point of the notification receiving, you've got 5 minutes to come and make this approval. So just click into it or tap into it. It should be on there. And then you'll open up the app and you'll see there a message that looks like this: approve the payment, merchant. So again, reminding you of which merchant it was in case you didn't quite catch it at the banner, the amount, and then the time remaining. At this point, let's say, hang on a minute, I don't recognize this payment. That's absolutely fine. You just reject it and it will not let the payment go through. Then let's say if there's been a situation and mix up with cards and somebody else tells you actually that was me, you can try again and it'll come through again. If you're wanting to make the approval then, it does need your biometrics enabling for the app. So nice and easily, all you need to do is go to your app settings, into account settings, scroll down to enable biometrics and toggle that to yes, and then the app will be able to use your Face ID, thumbprint ID, however you your biometrics are using it on your phone. But then once they're enabled, you'll be able to click approve, and then you'll be able to see the message then, payment approved, or if the time's lapsed or something's not right, it will tell you there's been an error and to go back to the merchant to try again on that one. So 2 key things or 3 really. You need to have the new mobile app. You need to have your notifications enabled so you can get told straight away when it's there for your approval. And third thing, enable those biometrics. But if you need any help or guidance on any of those things, do let us know. We have a nice little walkthrough on how to do it. And once it's set up for your biometrics and your notifications, you won't have to do it again. It'll be there ready to go each and every time. So that's a real time saver, especially if you are making those payments on the go on your mobile app. You'll be able to then do it, like I say, in real time without any delays on there.
So coming up to the end of the year then, in November, this is probably one of my favorite features actually, because in the implementation team, we obviously work with clients in that first part of their Volley experience, tailoring the system to their needs, understanding what they'd like, and then how we can provide that for them in terms of your bespoke setup. Now, let me start sharing my screen just so I can show you what this is all about. So previously, obviously, we've always been able to offer beneficiary approval. And what that means is, if you've got, for example, we're very busy accountants, we're the administrators on Volley, we'd like our crew actually, those heads of departments, to be adding the beneficiary, that's the bank details for suppliers before we then pay the invoices in the office here. But we're not too confident that they'll be able to get them right 100% of the time, and we're a bit cautious to then send payments when we've not already checked the beneficiaries. And that's what beneficiary approval is for. When that's switched on, the crew add the beneficiaries, but no payments can be made until designated people, for example, us two in this scenario, approve them, because we're happy we can check it. Again, we might want to phone and confirm the details. We might just check it against the bottom of the invoice and the payment can be made. That's how it's always worked. However, it's always been the case that it was one rule for all. So let's say it's a Sunday and I am in a real rush to make an urgent payment. Captain's on the phone. It's a fuel invoice and desperately needs paying. I make the beneficiary for that first time. Even when I added the bank details, Georgia would have had to log in on that Sunday and approve it. And obviously that's not ideal for clients. So what we've now got is beneficiary auto approval. What that means is if we want to set it up so that we are exempted, so specific people do not require approval when they add a beneficiary, that's now a possibility, which really means we can further tailor your workflow in terms of approvals and payments to your needs. So let me actually show what this looks like. So any beneficiaries requiring approval will always be waiting for you in the approvals tab at the top here. Volley Money beneficiaries requiring your approval. So let's say this 1A Services Limited, head chef has added that beneficiary details for that invoice to be paid for them. I'm able to check it beforehand, I approve it, and then we can make the payment, not to worry. But if I added a beneficiary for a different supplier, no one would have to approve that because I trust I will do a good enough job and get everything correct first time. So that's what that is, and it's a smaller feature, but one that I know our clients, especially in introduction calls that I do, will be really happy with.
One thing to mention as well there, I know that this is set up for quite a few clients already. If you haven't been reached out to individually and it's something you want to update, you have a list of, admins that should be able to do their auto approve. Please do let your client relationship manager know so we can update that. It's literally a couple of minutes just to change the settings. But as you can imagine, we don't know who that is for every company. So just let us know and we can make those changes as well on there. Okay, so finally then, December. So this month is the release of our help centre. Now, this one is a bit of a cheeky ad because it's something that we have been working on developing all year in the training team. We've been slowly but surely improving things, and especially with the chat function as well. So earlier on this year, you may have noticed that the chat function changed slightly. So it's always been this little logo down at the bottom of the screen, but when you click on it now, it takes you straight through then to this home where you can see helpful, what we call articles. And now you can click in to do the messages still. And then you've got your little help button there and use as a search function. So that was done earlier this year, but the articles have been slowly but surely growing. My colleague Anna has been working tirelessly on those sections. So then if we click into the account level, instead of the user guide that you used to be able to find down here at the bottom, we've now got something labeled Help Center. So it's all of the information from the user guide plus more. So we've got our articles, as I've mentioned, so you can click into certain ones for, as you've always been able to, like cash, approvals, just basic how the system works. But then you've also got a what's new section. So any new and upcoming or anything that's been new released that maybe we're not shouting about, it's maybe not got its own webinar, but we're happy to let you know it exists. You've got the what's new section, so you can click into there and see what's new to the system and have an explore on your own on that one. But one of the biggest changes as well as part of this article is the ability to embed videos now. So we've got new and improved videos essentially on how the system works, so you're not relying on a training session, you're not having to wade your way through that user guide. You've now got really helpful information on here. So for example, if we were to go into cash, And then we can see there, adding a cash purchase for desktop. You've got all your instructions, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you've got me and my face there telling you in video format. It's probably the worst screenshot I could have shown you of video format then of how to do it in real time. So you can just play it and then do it alongside that as well. So it's a much more inclusive and well-rounded now service with the chat with us now functionality, the articles, the videos on there, and we're trying to improve that experience so that you as the user, you can do it in your own time on the weekends, in the evenings. Maybe you've not got time for a training session with us, which is absolutely fine. It's busy life on the boats, and we're aware of that. So we've got now what we're calling the help center, and all of the information on there available to you as you might need it on that one. So that brings us then to the end of the webinar. We just want to say a really huge thank you to the marketing team. So they're there on the screen and with their festive hats as well. So this all couldn't be possible every other week without their help. So they usually do the presentations, do all the artwork and all the graphics, and of course all the promotion of the webinar. So Mia there in the middle, she's the one that makes sure that the Zoom's ready to go so that we can actually get out there and see you, because I wouldn't have a clue what I'm doing without her guidance on there. So a huge thank you for the marketing team for making the webinars possible. But then as well, we want to do a huge thank you to our dev team. So we've got there in the nice little pyramid, all of our dev workers, and they're the ones that, of course, make the system what it is. They take on any feedback that are given by the clients, by ourselves, and they make improvements. And again, something that they work and strive to make better, the program each and every time. All of these changes, of course, are facilitated by them. The platform wouldn't be what it is today without their input and support. And we can't thank them enough for all their hard work this last year.
Absolutely.
So if you have any questions at all, now would be the time to throw them in that chat, and we'll keep an eye on there. But in the meantime, we'd like to show you there our opening hours, because in case our outfits weren't enough of a giveaway, it is Christmas in a couple of weeks and a few of us will be not here. So we've got there our chat hours, so availability in live chat, and then also payments, because of course some payment providers are affected by bank holidays and things like that. Down at the bottom there, though, it does say for any out of hours support, you can contact us at the out of hours email, and that means that somebody will be able to pick it up if it's an urgent question and things like that. But yeah, that's our standard working hours and payments information on there. So have a look through that, screenshot it if you need to know it, but I'm sure that will be coming out in a newsletter if it's not already to you all. So you'll have that as well on there.
Absolutely. And just to finish up there, I could only see one kind of question which relates to the user guide, whether we'll be getting a new one. Obviously, that help center almost replaces that user guide, doesn't it? So that'll be getting bigger and bigger as we move everything over, but it's not so much a change to the user guide, it's sort of a new way of working with it.
Absolutely, and you'll still have that search function as well in the help center, so if there's still specific questions you've got around like cash, invoices, just search it and there's information on there. It's also something we can link in the chat as well, so if you are in the middle of a conversation, rather than having to send you an external link, we can just link things straight to you, so hopefully it'll be nice and easy on there for you.
Yeah, and then finally, just a quick question about USA support. We'll definitely touch base, that's noted, and we will get in touch in terms of what we're up to on that side. So we will message you. A couple of really lovely messages in there from clients wishing us a Merry Christmas. Same goes to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, other than that, very happy holidays. We've got a cracker to finish.
We do, finish it off on a high.
Final webinar of the year. Really? Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, I knew that'd happen.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for joining the webinars we've had throughout 2024. We hope you have a really lovely holiday wherever you are, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year.
And all the updates we have then. Having a good one, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.